There's nothing new under the sun, it has been said, and every generation that's tasked with raising the next is constantly facing challenges. What may have worked for parents then may not necessarily work for parents today. And in the digital age, how is the digital mom and the digital dad faring? Before you take out your scorecard, let's live out loud with family coach Violet Wanjiku next. Hello and welcome to Sheila Lives Out Loud. It's a great pleasure to have you on this channel. I certainly hope you've subscribed and told a friend about it. And have you hit the notification section yet? Please do so you never miss out on an episode. But we're living out loud at Westwood Hotel with family coach Violet Wanjiku. Hey Mama.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you so much for making the time to be here, and you look lovely.
Thank you.
Bright as the sun.
Thank
you just look like a pretty picture.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about yourself before we go straight into coaching families and getting it right as a parent in the digital age. Who is Violet Wanjiku?
Violet is a mom of a 25-year-old and an 18-year-old. And she has her passions, but one thing that she believes in is her family comes first. And that's what I take as my God-given responsibility to raise up godly children that have integrity. That at the end of the day, when I'm exiting this world, that I'll leave people, children who are able to take care of themselves. So basically, that's what I do. I do other things to earn a living, but first and foremost, my family comes first.
And
yes.
We're living in a day and age where the family unit has never faced as much stress as it's currently facing.
Yes.
There's economic turmoil,
Yes.
there's pressure in terms of cultural changes,
Yes.
because societies are never static. Things are constantly changing.
Yes.
And when you look at the things that have been affected the most, the one that's bearing the brunt of all these changes, including technological advancements,
Yes.
is the family.
That's true.
So let's get to basics with parenting.
Yes.
What really is parenting? Because giving birth to a child, making a child does not a parent one make.
Giving birth is one aspect of parenting, but I also look at it from God's perspective, and I don't apologize about looking at it from God's perspective, because God is the one who gives us children. So after God has given you a child, you have to bring up that child to the best of your ability. So parenting basically for me is taking this person that God has given you, the tiny little human being that God has given you, and molding them to be somebody so that they can achieve their full potential and they can get their purpose in life. That is what parenting is all about. But it includes also doing things to make this person be able to be adaptable in society. And when I look at it all, parenting is about, you have to look at it with an eternal perspective. Like at the end of the day, where will your child end? So you just can't look at it like you're taking this child and taking them through life. At the end of the day, where do you want your child to be? So you have to put in structures. And the structures that you have to put in as a parent, one is that you have to take care of the physical needs of that child. You have to feed them, you have to clothe them, you have to make sure that they go to school, they have shelter. That's just one aspect of parenting. But you also have to look at them and realize that for anyone to survive in society, they have to have values. So you have to get to building values in your child, because values is what makes them stand and say, I can do this, this is who I am. And these are my standards. So you have to decide, these are the values that I'm going to instill in my children. And that aspect of parenting, you have to start it from the day you get a child, or even before you get a child. You have to sit and say, what do I want to see 30 years down the line in my child?
And that's the thing a lot of parents are not cognizant
Yes,
of.
yes.
You're thinking 30 years later, you've brought up somebody,
Yes.
and you say, I took you to the best schools.
Yes.
I made sure you were clothed and fed,
Yes.
but I don't know who you are.
Yes.
I look at the person you've become, and I don't know what to do with you, because I cannot believe there's
That
any
this is the
connection
fact,
between
yes.
us. And that's simply because a parent started without the end
In mind. You have to ask yourself as a parent, what do I want my child to look like 30 years from now? How do I want them to behave? Do I want them to be able to hold on to a job? Do I want them to have a family of their own? Do I want them to be able to be integrated, well integrated in society? And then you work backwards.
In working backwards.
Yes.
And I'm speaking as a very single person. But
Yes.
you know, children, you never know how you will get your children.
Yes.
They come in many different shapes, forms, and
That's
sizes
true. Yes.
and manners. How you get the child,
Yes.
that is no longer the conversation we're having at this
Yes,
point.
yes.
We want to make sure in the next 30 years, because
Yes.
there are a lot of young parents today
Yes, yes.
who are making mistakes, who are feeling overwhelmed
Yes.
in this new role as a parent.
Yes.
So where does it begin? What do we start with?
Like I said, you have to start with the end in mind. Ask yourself, what do I envisage to see my son or daughter? It could be an adopted child, it could be your own birth child, but what do I want my child to be in 30 years' time? What kind of a person do I envisage them to be in 30 years' time? Then work backwards and ask yourself, for me to be able to get them to where I look at them. If you're looking at yourself and saying, what do I want my child to be? A business owner? Do I want my child to be a CEO somewhere? Do I want my child to be an artist?
Because you want your child to be successful.
Yes, you want your child to be successful. So one of the things you have to do is you have to define what success is in terms of your child.
Not in terms of me as the parent.
And not in terms of your child, and also not in terms of the world. Because success defined by the world is very different from the way as a parent you define your success. So for example, if you want a child that is going to have integrity as one of their core values, then you have to start teaching what brings about integrity. And that would mean that you teach honesty. So from the word go, your child knows like lying is not going to be a value that they have. Now,
and
you
not
see,
because I'm punishing you,
no,
but simply
it's
because as a parent, I know in 30 years' time, integrity
you will need
has
it.
to be part of who you are.
Integrity has to be part of it. Now, if you want your child to be a hard worker, then you start teaching work is not something bad from the word go. Even maybe from the time they are 3, then you start teaching them, because that is what is going to bring discipline. If you want your child to be disciplined, then you start teaching what discipline is all about, and you discipline so that they'll go up with it. If you want your child to have a good relationship with God, then you have to start teaching who God is by doing things that will make them have a relationship with God.
In listening to you speak, Violet,
Yes,
I can't help but think about parents who punish their children.
Yes.
And the punishment is not so much punishment
Yes.
with instruction that
Yes.
this is why I'm doing what I'm doing to you.
Yes.
It's punishment for venting sake.
Yes.
I told you 100 times not to do it, and now
Yes.
you're testing me.
Yes.
So because you're testing me, you're going to get it. And that kind of discipline does not build that 30-year success that you want.
It won't build that child, because it will be taken that it is done not out of love, but out of anger and out of that venting. Now, children are very capable of picking the vibe from parents. Now, one of the things as parents we have to watch out is how we discipline. For example, do you set a rule before you discipline? And one of the things that we have to do is we don't discipline for anything that we haven't set a rule. So you set your standards for your children.
Right.
And then you say, this is a standard. You went below the standard. So what did we agree on concerning going below the standard? Then you discipline. And your children have to understand that discipline is done out of love. And if you don't do it like that, then they'll actually not respect you, because if you love somebody, you want the best for them. And discipline is the best for any child.
No matter what age.
Yes. No matter what age,
yes.
it's just that there are different aspects, ways of doing it for different
groups.
ages.
There's a differing school of thought that says when a child has erred,
Yes.
that the punishment must be swift, that you can't spend too much time
Yes.
in between the crime
Yes.
and the punishment.
Yes.
But then I understand that as a parent, you need to cool down.
Yes.
But then this other school says the child needs to be very aware, and if you let too much time lapse between when they did something wrong and when they get punished for
Yes,
it,
yes.
then somewhere in the child's mind it becomes, oh, but I can do this and get away with it.
Yes.
So even as you're cooling down, know that
Yes.
you're not cooling down for a year,
Yes.
and then you come back with righteous reign
Yes.
in a year's time, because it's just confusing for the child.
I think how parents need to look at it is different ages need to be disciplined differently. When the children are very young, you need to discipline immediately because their concentration span is very short. So you need to discipline immediately. But as the children grow, you need to start disciplining and giving time. Now, this is one of the things that disciplining and giving time does. I'll give an example of what I used to do with my children. If you did a mistake, if we never had put it as a rule, then I would tell you, now we are putting it as a rule. So next time you do it, then you'll be punished for it.
Because
so it's
you are
established.
aware.
Yes, because you're aware. Now, if you come and do it, then one of the things I did is that I had a specific place for disciplining, and that was my bedroom. So what I would do is when somebody makes a mistake or does something that crosses the boundary, the first thing I say is go to my room.
I can imagine the trauma.
Yes, by the time they are walking to my room, they have already started thinking it's discipline time. Right. And so what I do is I calm down and then I walk maybe 3-5 minutes later and I go and find somebody who is willing to face discipline. And the other thing...
You're not chasing them around the room?
I'm not chasing them around the room. So they're seated on the bed.
Yeah.
And then I had a specific item for disciplining, either a mwiko or a sleeper,
Right.
but it had to be something that gave me space between me and the child, because you can't slap the child and the same you're hugging the child with your hand. So that has to be very specific, that you are disciplining, and let them identify that when I go to my room, this is what I'm going to be disciplined with, and then you do it and say, okay, this is supposed to get 3 canes, this is supposed to get 5, you give it, and even if they cry in the process of the 3, finish.
You have to follow through to the end.
Yes, you have to follow through. Let them deal with it. Let them come out with a smile on their face because you've dealt with it and it's done. Mm-hmm. And then you walk out. One of the challenges I find is that a lot of parents in this age are thinking that when you discipline, especially with a cane, you're basically not loving your child. Unfortunately, it's the other way around. When you don't cane, especially before the age of 12, you basically don't love your child, because you're telling them you can get away with anything. Mm-hmm. It's okay. Now, the sad bit is that the world will pick them up after 12
and cane them yeah.
when you should have caned them themselves.
And the world's canes are not as lenient. It's not a mwiko. When the world is caning you, it's not a mwiko.
Yes.
It could be a tree stump.
Exactly. And the world is very brutal. It's not going to treat your child with love. So why not, as a parent, treat your child with love, discipline them with love, so that they're able to cope and they can avoid that disciplining by the world.
All right.
Yes.
Looking at something you've said, by the age of 12,
yes.
you're not picking a slipper, you're not picking a belt, you're
yes.
not doing the mwiko.
Yes.
Something has changed in the dynamic between parent and child
yes.
after the age of 12.
Yes.
The cane no longer works.
Yes.
Why?
One of the things that parents need to understand is teenagers by then can reason. So caning might not really work, but you have to be able to put things in place that will replace caning. Because look at it like this, if you're going to cane a 14-year-old, they can turn around and hit you instead. So you also have to think about it and see the implications. But one of the things I like telling my children is, you know, if you're 16 and you behave like a 5-year-old, you'll be treated like a 5-year-old. So they knew that if you do something and throw a tantrum like a 5-year-old, you get the cane. Because basically
again, that's what you
yes. But what you need to do when they're that age, I think, is if you have taught if you've laid down the foundation, the standards that you need to be followed, and you followed them through. Now, teenage comes to a time of making sure that those boundaries are kept. How do you do it? You can put in place, for example, you can deny things. You can also give punishment that is the work. You can also, but basically is you talk to them, you make sure that this is the consequence and put the things that are consequences there. For example, deny the thing that they love most. Mm-hmm. For example, if it's a phone, deny it for some time. You know, if it's watching movies and they like doing that on over the weekends, then say no movies. Yeah, it has to be something that costs them something, because that is what the language they understand. And you have to do it. And one of the things that I always tell people is that do this. First, you have to lay the boundary, because boundaries keep you from harm. Yeah?
They're not to keep you away from the good stuff.
No, they're to
fun
keep
stuff.
you from harm.
Right.
Lay the boundary and do it in truth. First, teenagers, are able to handle the truth. So when you tell them this is it, then they're able to handle it, and then say, I'm doing this because I love you, and this is what it's going to come. And then also come out and say, this is a consequence. If you do this, these are the consequences. Okay. And at the end of the day, let them face reality. You know, for example, if a child has gone and they are arrested, in the worst case scenario, they are arrested and they are 16 and they have to spend in a police station. Sometimes it might just need you to allow them to spend in that police station because that's reality. And it might save them from being incarcerated
years
for life.
Later on in
you
life.
see, because that has an imprint in their minds that this was a consequence I faced. So as a teen, as a parent to a teen, you have to remember the 4 anchors is you have to lay down the boundary, tell the truth as it is, bring love into it, let them know that you're doing it out of love, and let them face the consequences, which is the reality of the situation.
All right.
Yeah.
Talking about the reality of the situation, I'm
Yes.
thinking about kids who get expelled from school.
Yes.
And when they come home, it's a party.
Yes.
Or if they get suspended from school and they come home, it's a party, because there's a school of parenthood that has decided our teens, our children are our friends.
Yes.
I am my daughter's friend.
Yes.
I am my son's friend.
Yes.
And it's a very gray area when a parent decides I am my child's friend.
Yes.
When the relationship is not parent-child, but
Yes.
friendship.
Friendship.
What's the danger with that?
The danger is, and let me say this, if you're in, like, I am in a school, I have a leadership position in a school that my son goes to. And one of the things that happens is every Friday, you see children making a reason, giving the administration a reason to actually send them home. Because what they know is, I'm being sent home, but it's basically sitting for the weekend. I'm going to make sure that if the family is going out, I'll go out. So children are looking for reasons to be able to stay home and enjoy the facility.
They're doing all kinds of things to break laws,
yes,
to be suspended.
so that they can go home. Now, but you see, and that is where the parent has to come in and realize that, okay, you've come home. Unfortunately, I can't take you out. Even if it was a family outing, you stay home.
Because technically you were supposed
to be in school.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that means you're discouraging home being the place of comfort. Parents, I think we need to bite the bullet when it comes to punishing our children, because we have to stop looking at it as punishment. We have to start looking at it as discipline.
So we are parents.
Yes.
Not friends.
We are not, but you can be a friend to your child so that they trust you, they can tell you everything, they can come to you and share their deepest fears, but they, at the end of the day, know you are the parent.
We're living in a day and age where children are exposed to so much more than parents and grandparents were exposed to at whatever given age we're talking about. There's nothing a 5-year-old doesn't know about the birds and the bees and about life in general, really. In saying honesty should be one of those things that kids can come and talk to you about. I know children and who have walked up to their parents and asked about, crucial biological differences between girls and boys.
Yes.
And when that question is asked, the parent is so embarrassed, the parent is so flustered that they just have absolutely no idea what to do next.
Yes.
Then we've got, so that's a 5-year-old asking this question. Then let's scale it up to a 15-year-old who is at that age when the body has changed, everything's happening. They want to go out and hang out with their friends, and things are happening while they're hanging out with friends, but something keeps them from being able to be open and honest about matters, for instance, sexuality with their parents, because God forbid, they are not meant to, talk about certain things.
That's true.
What would you say to parents who hold on to this way of parenting?
Okay.
Is it the way to go? I think it's very dangerous, but then again, unpack that.
Okay, this is one of the things I would like to say. Parenting is intentional. Now, Sheila, if you want to develop your career, you intentionally go and do things that will help you develop your career. You go back to school, you learn, you go out and seek knowledge concerning this issue. Now, as parents, we have to go out and intentionally seek knowledge. because you won't sit when your child is growing up in the 21st century and expect that they will not get knowledge. Now, the other thing that we need to realize is that parents have an opportunity to establish telling the truth to their children when they are younger so that they trust them, that what they say is the truth, and as they grow, they will not start doubting that what you tell them is the truth. So one of the things I would like to encourage parents is be intentional about the things that you want to learn about parenting, because then that way you are going to be able to learn many, many things that will help your child. The other thing that people need to remember, and I'll share my example. When my daughter was 7, she came and asked me matters concerning sex. Where do babies come from? And for me, I was shocked. And I told her, listen, it was on a Wednesday. I remember it very clearly. It was on a Wednesday, and I told her, we will have a date on Saturday. And I thought she was going to forget. But Saturday at 8 o'clock, she was there waiting for the date. And between the time we were to go and talk in the bedroom and from the living room, I remember I prayed. And I think that's one of the prayers God answered like this. Now, what I did is I realized from then on that I am a parent because God has given me opportunity to be a parent. And if I seek wisdom concerning parenting, God is going to answer that. And what I did is I went and sat down and laid it bare to my 7-year-old daughter. But one of the things I said is, this is something that we have shared between me and you. You can always trust me to tell you the truth, and please don't ask somebody else, come and always ask me. So even as my daughter was becoming a teenager, she knew I was a first point of contact concerning the truth. Because let me tell you, Sheila, if you don't tell your child the truth, the world is very willing to tell them their truth. And it's going to be their truth.
And even worse,
not the
show
truth.
them
Yes,
the
and
truth.
show them the truth. But which truth? Is it the world's truth, or is it the truth that is set by the standards that God has set for us? And again, I said, you can't separate God from parenting, because He's the one that made you a parent. So you can't decide, this is going to be me on my own. You have to remember that you have a source that is willing so much to come and tell you, here I am, let me help you.
Here I am, let me help you. This is something you do to help new parents, established parents, and parents to be someday. And what we're going to do, because we need you to live out loud with us again very soon. We're out of time for today, but thank you so much for coming and helping us, get to grips with parenting in the digital age. The door is open. We are going to share Violet's contacts. Be sure to log on to my social media and we will post those contacts up in there. And she will be here again soon. So if you've got parenting challenges, you'd like to hear a little bit more about parenting 101, 102, 208, and then we graduate to the master's and PhD level, please inbox me or send me an email to my email address on your screen. Thank you for subscribing to my channel. Yes, I'm hoping that you already have. We're living out loud at Westwood Hotel. Looking forward to catching up with you again soon. Until then, live out loud.